Welcome. We're about to dive into this invisible force that's constantly shaping your judgments, your beliefs, and pretty much every decision you make. It's called cognitive ease, and honestly, getting a handle on it might just change the way you think about, well, everything. You've totally had this happen, right? You hear a story or maybe just a simple statement, and something in your gut just goes, yeah, that sounds right. It just clicks. Well, it turns out there's a really fascinating reason for that feeling, and it's all about this idea of cognitive ease. So, what exactly is cognitive ease? You can think of it as your brain just chilling in its comfort zone. When information is easy for it to chew on, maybe it's written in a clear font, or you've heard it before, your brain doesn't just process it faster. It actually slaps all these positive labels on it. It feels familiar, it feels true, it feels good, it even feels safe. So really, you can think of your mind as having two basic modes. On one side, you've got cognitive ease. This is your brain's system one. It's fast, it's intuitive, it's basically on cruise control. But on the other side, there's cognitive strain. That's what happens when things get tricky or unfamiliar. It's an alarm bell that wakes up your system too, the slower, more analytical part of your brain that really has to stop and think. Okay, so if our brain loves being in that easy, comfortable state, what does it do to stay there? Well, one of its most powerful tools is creating stories. Our minds are basically narrative-making machines, built to take all the random chaos of the world and package it into a neat, tidy story that makes sense. And at the heart of all this is one simple fact. Our brains hate, and I mean hate, uncertainty. An unexplained event creates this feeling of tension, of that cognitive strain we were just talking about. It's like a mental itch that your brain is absolutely desperate to scratch. So how does it scratch that itch? Oh, it's almost instantaneous. An unexplained thing happens which creates that uncomfortable tension. Your brain immediately jumps in and assigns a cause. It fills in the blank right after the word because. And just like that, poof, a coherent story is born, that wonderful feeling of cognitive ease is back, and the world makes sense again. But we don't just stop at a simple cause and effect. We usually take it a step further. See, our brains are wired for a social world, so we don't just ask what caused this. We ask who did this and why. We're constantly projecting intentions and motives onto things, turning what might be a totally random event into a little drama with characters and a plot. This obsession with creating a simple, coherent story also perfectly explains a classic bias you've probably run into, the halo effect. This is what happens when our overall impression of a person just sort of bleeds over and colors how we judge all their other specific traits. It's all about keeping the story simple and consistent. Just think about it. Your fast-thinking System 1 meets someone and decides, hey, this person is charming. Well, it would feel kind of complicated and messy if they were charming but also unreliable or dumb. So to keep that comfortable, simple story going, your brain just fills in the rest of the blanks with other good stuff, whether you have any evidence for it or not. Now, this love of ease is incredibly efficient, for sure, but it definitely has a downside. These mental shortcuts that help us build these quick, easy stories, they can often lead us way off track to the completely wrong conclusion. Let's take a look at how that happens. This quote from the Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman, it nails the biggest flaw in our intuitive thinking. Our brain builds its neat little stories using only the information that's right there in front of it. It doesn't stop to ask the most important question. Wait a minute, what information am I missing here? And this is the real trap of what you see is all there is. Our feeling of confidence doesn't come from the quality of the evidence we have. Not at all. It comes from how coherent the story is. That's why a super simple story built on just a couple of facts can feel way more convincing than a complex, messy reality that's supported by a mountain of data. Here's another sneaky trick our brain pulls, called question substitution. When it's faced with a really hard, complex question, it secretly swaps it out for an easier one that it can answer right away. So instead of doing the hard work of judging your entire life, your brain just asks, how am I feeling right now? And uses that answer instead. And the craziest part? You don't even notice the switch happened. So how can it pull off this swap so seamlessly? It's thanks to something called the mental shotgun. Your brain, in the background, is constantly making dozens of little assessments about the world without you even asking it to. So when a hard question comes along, there's always an easy, emotionally charged answer already loaded in the chamber, ready to go. All right, so knowing all this,
How do we push back against the pull of these super tempting, easy answers? The key is actually to strategically introduce a little bit of cognitive strain. To make things just hard enough that our slower, more thoughtful brain has to wake up and get involved.
Now, let's be really clear here. The goal is not to get rid of cognitive ease. We need it to survive our day. We can't second guess every single tiny intuition. The real skill is learning to recognize those situations, the high stakes ones, where a feeling of ease might actually be a red flag, a signal that we need to slow down and call in the big guns, our system too.
So here's a practical toolkit for you. First, just slow down. Deliberately check your gut feelings and assumptions. Second, fight that what you see is all there is trap. You have to actively go looking for information that contradicts your initial story. And third, get an outside opinion. Talk to people who see things differently to break out of your own biases, like the halo effect.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. The next time you come across an idea or a conclusion that just feels instantly, effortlessly true, I want you to pause for just a second. That feeling of ease might be a sign that you're right. Or it might just be your brain taking a very convenient shortcut. The real wisdom is knowing when to stop and ask the harder questions.